terrific reunion!
Lovely to be back.
It's finally here! Reunited for a debate and dinner!
It's alive, isn't it?
Tonight, alumni, you choose your debate winners. It's time! To face
Drugs.
the debating.
You're a fascist. You're born into such his ideas. Believe in it. He's wrong. You're wrong. I admit.
Good evening, members of the House.
Good evening.
Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to see so many elderly faces here. I'm here as your president of the 176th session. My name is Dermot, Hamill, HLM. I've got two, none of the rest of you do. But I declare this the inaugural alumni debate and meeting of the Queen's University Belfast Literary Scientific Society duly constituted and vacate the chair of President Emeritus Olcan.
I've heard that from you before. Good evening, everyone. President Hamill, sir, past presidents, members of this august society, and honoured guests. I am delighted and privileged to take the chair for this very special event, the Literifics Dobrans Bicentennial, which I'm relying on for the 175th anniversary. It is truly remarkable to see here so many people who have contributed so much to the society. As engaged members, passionate speakers, diligent council members, and dynamic presidents. Indeed, given events of the last week in Rome, I'm reminded that there are other bodies that choose their leaders in obtuse and protracted manners. It leads me to wish to shout from the balcony, not habeas papem, but habemus presides. Seriously, the Literary and Scientific Society and its successor/predecessor, the Debating and Moving Society, have been part of my life for almost half of my existence, if you can possibly believe it.
Since you were 10.
Quite right! Thank you, Cronos. And the same goes for this esteemed university. Of course, tonight's motion, this House believes Queen's prepared us for life after university, is a fitting motion for the evening. Though that all of us were willing to set foot on Queen's soil again possibly tells us about how we feel from the get-go.
Here, here.
Shame.
So, without further ado, I'm going to say that it's a great, great honour to share this debate. I welcome you all here this evening. Very many faces that I know and who I'm very, very pleased to see. And I think that on that note, we shall move on to private members' business. Anybody have any private members' business?
Mr. President, Mr. Chair.
Finlay.
In time-honored fashion, I would ask the Chair pro tempore what he had for breakfast.
Thank you very much, Finlay. My breakfast was a stout, liquid one, as is my custom. That's all I should say on the matter.
As Chair of the Literary Trust, it's a great pleasure to be here this evening, and it's my equal pleasure to recognise the inestimable energy and enthusiasm of President Hamill by presenting him with this book. Many of you in the room have signed the book. Anybody who hasn't signed it yet, please do so before the evening is out. And any of you who know Dermot will know the book is probably the most appropriate gift we could have given him for the contribution. It's by Edward Carson QC.
Some light bedtime reading. Any other pieces of private member business?
May I please ask the eternal leader, given that we're all here, who his favourite president after him was?
Well, you know.
On that, Mr. President,
Yes, President Hamill.
I had Theresa May.
You did have Theresa May. It's, which, you know, the less.
Does Mr. May know?
Oh, she knows, Stephen.
That's Baroness Mayfield.
Thank you very much to our esteemed member for the Houses of Parliament. Well, I think the most important thing is to recognise all those people who deserved to be president but never were. Mostly Finlay. There's any other private members? I think we've conflated private members' business with president's questions now. So if anybody has any of either, and by the way, we move on to president's questions formally. President's questions to be directed at any current or former president of the Literary Society.
Yes, since President Hamill needed to stroke his ego and say that he had 2 HLMs, how'd you get the second HLM?
I believe that's
And
okay.
who'd you do it with?
Second revolution.
I think, as our eternal leader, President Emeritus Shannon raised, that's a question for President questions. And not to be completed.
It is President's question. It's
Oh,
President's
fuck, is this
question.
President?
And
On a point of order.
Well, listen, I took a trip down to Dublin. I spoke at DCU debates, debate in the Mansion House. Did I sleep with their Vice President? That is not for me to say.
I certainly hope.
Did I walk out with an HLM? Yes, I did. But I think, you know, whether or not I engage in
I think you should probably wrap this up.
whether or not I did so is a matter for people much greater than me to figure out. But you know what? That's why I only did Dublin.
Any other questions? Ryan?
Because you've said that the questions can be directed to any of the presidents in the room,
Yeah.
I'd like to know what each of the presidents in the room had for breakfast this morning.
Well, I've already told you mine. Tailte.
Toast.
Dermot.
Wine.
As always, Daniel.
Nothing.
Who else in the room?
Brother.
Brothers,
Carruthers.
Cocoa Pops.
Who's here? Bradley.
Calvin. Black.
Calvin. Ben. You're just going to have to shout out the stage because I can't see all you. Tara.
Active man.
It'd be easier if we did who hasn't been a president.
This is pathetic. I took Jeremy Mueller, who's flown all the way from Germany, to the Tesco cafe, and we both had bumper Ulster fries.
I think bumper Ulster fries is an excellent way to go with this. Any other questions for the president's plural?
Given that we have the presidents, or a large number of them in one place, is each president willing to condemn the French?
Yeah. You see, the thing is, old chap, you put me in a rather tricky. Any of the others want to go?
I'll go.
German.
I will absolutely, resolutely condemn the French.
Anybody else?
Vraiment!
Thank you, Carruthers.
Could propose a motion to condemn.
I will second.
I'll second that.
What second did that have to take? The motion before the House that this House condemns the French. Will all those in favour say aye? Aye. All those opposed, nay? Nay. Cheers. Cheers. The ayes have it. This House condemns the French. It's a 5 minute thing, that one lovely. I do. Anybody else? Any other questions?
This year in the Literature, I've been quite fascinated with Dermot's pimp table in Kremlin. My question for the other presidents is, where would you have your pimp table? In which club?
I feel like you should
Could you
define?
Could I perhaps offer contact with the president?
Sexual
revolution continues.
So a pimp table is like, you get like a VIP table, like in a club, like what pimps get. It's like bottle service. And Dermot got it one night, and we call it the pimp table. So what club would the other presidents have their pimp table in?
Carlton.
Yes, well, I think the less said about that, the better, given the revelations about where you got to edit it. Anyone else want to go?
The Ulster Farm Club.
The Ulster Farm Club. Anybody else?
Ryan Huey.
Anybody else? I think we've wrapped that one up. There's any other questions? Well then, I think we'll move quickly on. We will now move on to the vote of prior opinion. So, the motion for the House this evening is, this House believes Queen's prepared us for life after university. As it stands, before you have heard any of the speakers this evening, could you please, all those in favour of the motion, that this House believes Queen's prepared us for life after university, please say aye. 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 All those opposed, no.
Nay.
50-50. I'm not going to go to I'm not going to go to a time.
Sort of innovative solution.
You can't have.
We do. So the secretary comes with the president.
Okay, let's go Eurocrats. Okay, then all those in favour, please raise your hands.
Neither.
I have roughly 27. 28 noes, raise your hands. We have 28 in the affirmative and 22 to the negative abstentions. Liberals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 7? 28, 22, 7?
Yes.
Okay. So, in the vote of prior opinion, we have ayes 28, noes 22, and abstentions 7. We will then now move on to the rules of the debate. Most of you know the rules of literature debate very well, I imagine. 7-minute speeches. First and last minute is protected time, which will be signified by the bell. No barracking is allowed. If you need to leave the room, please do so quietly in between speeches. No swearing. Anyone who swears owes the house a bottle of port. God, I'm so glad I put that rule in. My God, so cheap.
Take that rule out. Yeah.
No.
No. Yeah.
No, because as the current president, you owe me a bottle of port if you swear. Absolutely, we cannot take that route.
I'm not allowing this to continue. And this is how we will continue. And so, the motion for the House, once again, is this House believes Queen's prepared us for life after university. I now call on the first proposition, Finlay.
He's never liked me. And that's obvious by him actually asking me to introduce the debate. Right, well here we are. It's good to see everyone. Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I'm here to propose the motion that this House believes Queen's prepared us for life after university. And there will be some unpacking, and perhaps some might argue unkindly some time filling to do as I elucidate what that motion presents to us. But first of all, let's just note why we are all here, shall we? We are here on the 175th anniversary of the Literary and Scientific Society. We claim that means it's the 175th session. We're really hoping no one checks. Queen's, of course, was founded in 1845 as the Queen's College of the Royal University of Ireland. The Literarific was founded 5 years later, maybe not by E.L. Godkin, but in association with E.L. Godkin. And that bust, or not bust, but relief of Mr. Godkin's profile on the ground floor remains a point of pilgrimage for all of us. So the question is, does any of that matter? Did our experience at the Literarific, which I think most, if not all of us here share, in any way prepare us for what came next? And we have to do a little bit of unpacking. First of all, what do we mean by queens? I know. That's what we're going. By which I mean, most, if not all of us here were at Queen's, but I do not intend to propose, and I do not think my fellow speakers on the proposition intend to propose, that Queen's is synonymous with the strict academic course that we did here. It is the entire experience. It is the course that we studied. It is the life that existed around the course that we studied. It is the introduction to adulthood, for most of us living away from home for the first time. And last but not least, particularly not least, because I ran out of space to fill in this bit on my piece of paper, it is the Literarific.
On that point,
Mr. Hamill.
Sir, as many who have been in council know that the Queen's administration, particularly to the Students' Union, have been nothing but an impasse for those of us within the Literarific. Are you going to suggest to all of us who have been on council here that that has been part of the Queen's formative experience? And would you suggest that rather what we did in the Literarific is because of Queen's rather than in spite of it?
Well, the House of Commons Business and Trade Committee, of which I'm graciously hosted by Queen's only 4 days ago in the Riddle Hall, so I'm not going to comment on the Queen's administration. They're a great bunch of lads. Moving on. The Literarific cannot therefore be discounted from what we mean by our experience at Queen's. Secondly, what do we mean by prepared? What I'm going to argue that the word prepared means, and what I think my fellow speakers on the proposition, if only I had a chance to check with them, are not going to dissent from, is that preparation means to give us the experience, the personal development, and fundamentally the memories that allow us to constructively encounter and overcome challenges that life is going to throw at us. What it does not mean, the word preparation, is guarantee. And if anyone's going to come to me and say, oh, I didn't get XYZ job, or I didn't have XYZ dream of mine realised, and that's because Queen's didn't set me up, I'm going to argue it gave you a good start in pursuing that. And finally, let's define life after university. It doesn't just mean having a job. It means being prepared. And also, you could argue, as I think was indicated earlier by one of the previous interveners, there's not really any such thing as life after university, given that I'm here. I'm so old now. I feel extremely old. Yes. I couldn't fit into my trousers earlier, so old I am. And yet I'm still here. So there's not really such thing as life after university, but what there is life with university. University is an accompaniment to life. It is an augmentation. And I think it is one that is invaluable. Yeah. So if we go to these kind of four categories, starting off with course life. I studied history at Queen's between 2011 and 2014. And the experience studying history here gave me impeccable experience in learning how to talk about books that I hadn't read as if I'd read them. The mere fact of being able to copy a footnote from a book into an essay that you were writing and citing that as if you'd read the original book has been the guiding star of my career in the House of Commons ever since. Being able to write sarcastically is something that I've written here. It's something I have to admit I don't get much experience of working for Parliament because you have to be very dry and factual with everything. But the essays that I wrote then really give me a sort of love of the English language and a love of twisting words and deploying them in a way to make a rhetorical point that I wouldn't have had otherwise. No, thank you. I'm running out of time. I'm afraid. The course life, well, that pretty much prepared me for doing stuff at the very last minute. I'm not going to comment on how that impacts upon some of the proceedings in Parliament that you might see today, but I am definitely a crammer, and I think Queen's give me the experience of knowing what I can get away with cramming. Living away from home, I remember I lived in 20 Landseer Street with some individuals who are represented here today. I didn't know until I lived in Landseer Street, as President Emeritus Cllr will attest, that when you fry a packet of mints, you are meant to take the little bit of paper underneath the mint. And it was my dinner of lightly sautéed paper that evening, which was one of the mistakes that we have to overcome in our growth as individuals. I haven't got on to thinking about anything about the litterific. I think I've got 10 seconds left. I think my colleagues are going to talk about the value of the degree. They're going to talk about the friends and the enemies that they may here for their employment. And I think President Emeritus, Mr. Toft, is going to say something that will occur to him within the next 10 minutes. No preparation allowed for this. But in conclusion, my argument is that preparation is not a guarantee. Preparation means giving you the experiences and memories that you need to encounter life's challenges. And the array of memories, good and bad, and also things which, thanks to this, are not necessarily in my memory, but I think embedded themselves in my instincts, that I got at Queen's have resulted in everything you see today. And I will leave that with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Finlay. I'm also reminded of that house on Landseer Street and how some of us very nearly never recovered from some of Adam Kidd's particular problems. I now invite Matthew Sullivan.
Okay, here we go. So, members of the House, it has been a while. The proposition tonight has given us some interesting ones. And if I can read my own handwriting, then I'll be able to discuss them. Yes, I've got them here. So, their central point so far is essentially that Queen's can prepare you in some way for real life, but that this preparation is not a guarantee for, being prepared for real life. They do some conflation of life sort of around university as being the university itself. For example, they talk about you live in a house with your friends, as if this is something that the university did to prepare you for life, rather than something that you were forced to do because you couldn't afford to stay in like anywhere else. And then they talk further about how the university gives you experiences, which I'm actually going to discuss. How the university gives you experiences, you know, that are fun, but are not the experience that you need to actually exist in the real world post-university. My two main points here are going to be on the differences between the actual things you do in industry versus university. And then in the differences between like how you're treated, you know, in terms of fairness in university versus industry. And just because it's a special occasion, I will be taking every single point of information. So firstly, let's talk about the differences between work in industry and the theory that you learn in class. I'm going to give you examples from my own field, which is software engineering, but I think most people are going to find the things I'm talking about ring pretty true in their own fields as well. When I was in my first and second years of university, I learned the basics of software development. How to write code, what a computer does inside of the computer, you know, writing little programs in a group project, that kind of thing. And then I did a year-long internship, and I found out that I just did not know how to do my job, like at all. I knew nothing. And I'm not going to bore you with like the specifics of like the things you do in software engineering or the tools you have to use, but suffice to say that they just didn't teach us about.
On that point.
Sure, go ahead.
Could that not just be construed though as a problem with that particular course and its lecture rather than the institution of Queen's itself?
So, yeah, I take that point. I think that while, yeah, my specific course had this problem, I think you'll find that most courses are going to have this problem, and I'll get on to why this is a general issue rather than just specific to my course. For example, even like basic theoretical stuff, like for me, things like how a program scales up to 1 user versus 1,000 users versus like 1 billion users. This is basic stuff. This is stuff that like to get any entry-level job in my field, you just have to know. And they just did not teach us this. And why not? Like, what is the reason for this? Because they didn't know we'd need it, right? And how could they? Queen's doesn't know the specific place you're going to work at. They don't know the field you're going to work in. They don't know the job you're going to do or the company you're going to work with. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you clarify in your speech whether your objection is to Queen's or to university in general?
Oh, both. So universities in general and Queen's in particular. I believe I saw another point from over there somewhere.
I disagree on that as a whole. I think in cybersecurity, course at Queen's, I know was very kind of tightly produced with industry and, you know, people employing from the course. So I do think that's exclusive across all courses.
I see. So there was no question. Thank you. And so I'll go on to why they didn't teach us this. Basically, Queen's, because they don't know exactly what you're going to be doing, and this is for every course, they're forced to teach you kind of a breadth of theory, so they might give you something you might use later. But that ends up not giving you specific knowledge that you need to actually do any work. And of course, there's no real way for them to know what of like 1 billion emerging technologies you're going to need 3 years later when you actually graduate your course. And so, fundamentally, my point here is that there is no substitute for real-world experience. And that's something Queen's doesn't really have a way to overcome. Like, their best efforts, for me personally, was they got us to do these year-long internships. But even then, a lot of students, like, go to these internships, and, like, the first speaker for the proposition was saying, there's no guarantee this actually works out. You know, you end up going to some place that treats you as cheap labor rather than actually teaching you anything. And so even their best effort is unreliable and ultimately for most people falls short. I'll get on to my second point, which is fairness. Universities, in general, at least try to be fair, like most of the time. Your lecturers are incentivized to help you get the highest grades possible. When your work is graded and your performance gets evaluated, it's pretty meritocratic. Like, the exam markers don't know who you are. They're not even allowed to know your name. Most of the time. And you're not going to get an email one Friday saying, we are expelling 10% of the students in your course. Can I accept this?
Are these not all good things about Queen's, that it's meritocratic and didn't randomly expel you?
Oh yes, see, this is actually good. But you see, this doesn't prepare you for real life. Because many things in real life are actually not good. When it's not perfect, which it often isn't, has something of a duty of care towards you as a student. You're paying them for a service, they're providing it. And then you have work. Your employer can replace you in a flash. Your performance is graded by a guy who sits in the desk behind you and might just not like you or not know who you are. There's no clear way, usually, to measure how well you're doing other than, like, vibes. And you can end up probably in this situation, probably most people will eventually get this, where you get the email that says, by the way, we are firing 10% of the people in your department in 1 month. Have fun. To conclude, I'll be very quick. I'm not saying Queen's is bad or universities are bad, but what I'm saying is nothing can really adequately prepare you for whatever your next stage of life is. Primary school, you prepare for secondary school for university, and so on. And even though they try, because there is no substitute for real-world experience, and because Queen's cannot provide you with real-world experience, Queen's simply cannot prepare you for the real world, much as they might try. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We move on to the second speaker for the proposition, and that is Rebecca McMinn.
Hello everyone. For those who don't know me, or have tried very hard to forget, my name is Rebecca and I was here in 2017 and I graduated in 2020, which was 5 years ago now. So I have some thoughts about life after university. And I'm here to argue in support of the motion this House believes Queen's prepared us for life after uni. Looking at the complicated world around us, it's easy to wonder if the lectures and assignments actually prepared us for life beyond it all. But I'll argue that the answer is yes, that our time in Queen's did in fact equip us with the experience to thrive beyond university. First and foremost, the obvious benefit of university, the actual education. No matter what you studied, your degree will have taught you academic skills which will stand you in good stead going forward. Whatever your degree is in, it will have taught you to think critically, to analyse complex ideas, and how to communicate your own ideas effectively. In any field of study, you will have written papers and developed research skills. You will have given a presentation developing communication and leadership skills. And in life after university, in the workplace, these skills are really valuable. Problem solving, decision making, and the ability to evaluate information are skills needed in almost any career, which our time at Queen's did prepare us for. Even if, like me, you studied a less than traditionally employable degree, the academic rigor of your course will have taught you how to approach problems methodically, how to find solutions, and these academic skills directly prepare us for life beyond university. Secondly, our time at Queen's prepared us for life after uni by exposing us to a broad range of perspectives and a diversity of thought and experience. Universities are a pretty uniquely diverse place. It's never easier to meet people from all over the world, from different backgrounds to your own, with different beliefs and opinions. And I know that this diversity of experience and opinion helped me to develop an outward-looking mindset and an openness to different people and different ideas, which is so important in today's world. I know that for me, before I came to Queen's, I didn't have much experience meeting people who were very different to me, and I'm sure that's true with many of us. And at Queen's, that changed. And now in the workplace, like most people, we all have to collaborate with people from all walks of life. And our time at Queen's of learning how to live and learn with other people, of being open to other ways of thinking and doing, prepared us for this. The ability to understand different viewpoints, communicate well, and network easily with those around us prepared us for the workplace beyond university, and I would argue has made us more open and interesting people, not just in the workplace, but in all walks of life beyond uni. The ways in which Queen's prepared us for life beyond graduating are not just about academics or career prep. As our first speaker said, university is more than the degree, it's about the whole experience and the time of life, which is about personal growth. I know that during my time in Queen's, the lessons I learned outside the classroom are the ones which give me the most value. Importantly, developing resilience and overcoming failure. Whatever you studied, no, thank you. Whatever you studied, your degree was probably not easy, and you'll have faced challenges that tested your resilience and adaptability. That first disappointing essay or the first exam you really struggled with, these challenges provided opportunities for growth and development. And university provides a relatively safe place in which to try and to fail. And so you can go on to learn with safety nets and support in place that are not often found outside the university environment. And beyond academics, university offers chances for personal growth, to try new things and to take risks. You can try sports or skills or activities at university that you would have never tried otherwise. The Cllr is a perfect example. Before I came to Queen's, thought of speaking in a room with this many people would have been a nightmare. I'm sure that's true of many of us. But I was able to try something new, a bit intimidating in a safe environment, and I discovered that I was capable of something that I wouldn't have otherwise thought. Most graduates will have similar experience of trying something new, of learning something about themselves, and overcoming a challenge, be that academic or extracurricular, or bits of paper in mints in the pan, they wouldn't have been exposed to had they not had the university experience. Learning how to find something difficult and to persevere anyway, these are valuable experiences which prepared us for life after university in the real world. So to summarise, our time at Queen's prepared us for life after university in multiple ways. Academic preparation, career skills and personal growth, all of which were valuable in preparing us for life beyond university. Thank you everyone, this was really fun to have a little go at. I urge you to side with the proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. We now move to the second speaker for the opposition. A man whose electoral prospects need no introduction. Councillor Dr. Stephen Goss.
Eternal Leader, Mr. President, sir, members of the House, survivors of Queen's University. I feel I'm particularly well placed to speak on this motion. Not only did I spend 7 years at Queen's as a student,
good God.
Right, but a subsequent 6 years on staff here at the university. It is therefore with a certain authority that I rise to oppose the motion, and oppose it I do. For as much as I enjoyed my time here, and as Mr. Finlay has mentioned, the halcyon days of my literary years in particular, they in no way prepared me for the dark, cold reality of the world outside this venerable institution. If the House might indulge me with my own pitiful tale, having entered Queen's, I had no desire or intention of leaving it. History was my vocation. I was more than happy to spend my working life in a revered institution, educating future generations who don't know what they want to do, so opt for a history degree. I obtained my doctorate, was a tutor, a lecturer, and rose to become a module convener. All was going well. Then a new Chancellor, Patrick Johnson, struck. Having risen to become head of medicine, teeth, and other sciencey things, once in power he took an axe to the arts and humanities of Queen's, declaring, and I quote, "Society does not need a 21-year-old who is a 6th century historian." As a result, I and countless others were cast out.
On that point, yes, he did take that axe to you, but here you stand today, Councillor Goss. So it's impossible, Councillor, that he pushed the little bird out of the nest and the bird flew to become the pipe smoking gentleman I see before me right now.
Well, you suggest that's some sort of positive. I'm going on to explain why that is a negative. So as I said, cast out, I was forced to fend for myself and to for a few years made a living doing jobs for which a doctorate is entirely superfluous. And yet, having encouraged me along the way and happily accepted my fees, Queen's left me with a skill set and qualifications largely redundant in modern society. You do not need a doctorate in order to be a counsellor, and especially if you're a reform counsellor. And so, despite being a published academic historian, I am now making a living as a populist. Historian, pouring myself out as a speaker at various historical societies, to libraries, to museums, to women's institutes. Though I won't complain about the team test.
On that point, this all seems very self-inflicted.
I did not choose to leave Queen's, I was forced out.
That's tough after
Nobody
Nobody. Sorry.
Give a cherry my committee.
Hey, bargain.
What is more, and to refer to a point that was already made by the physician, in order to supplement my living, I have been reduced to an ignominy that no sensible, self-respecting graduate of Queen's should be subjected. I have stood for and was elected to local government. Not quite. Various Republicans have been elected in the past. We count amongst our number members of the Parliament of Northern Ireland, real MPs that were elected to Westminster, and members of the Northern Ireland Assembly. Here. Yet, there is no one here this evening that would suggest that the quality of debate, discussion, and deliberation in these other inferior bodies is equal to that to be heard in this House. Given that Queen's suppressed our illustrious society for several decades, it has, as a result, not only reduced the standard of debate in Westminster, Leinster House and Stormont, but in any legislative body any of us may find ourselves from time to time. By its actions, Queen's is not only not preparing us for our lives hereafter, but diminishing the quality of legislative debate in these islands. And Lord knows it is low enough already. Many of us here tonight will remember that the Right Honourable Sir Anthony Blair declared that the top 3 priorities were education, education, and education. Nonetheless, that is what the previous Labour government had pursued, because they were seeking to find 50% of school leavers going to university. Our alma mater here fell into step with the rest of the universities and foreign polytechnics across the UK and endeavoured to deliver this vision, yet were as that left us. Venerable institutions such as this have spent a quarter of a century under the promise of a better future, when what all Queen's and other universities of its ilk have done is churn out graduates. Queen's has contributed to the state of affairs we now find ourselves in, where a bachelor's degree is effectively the equivalent of A-levels a generation ago, and a master's is new bachelor's. And so, in reality, members of the House, many of us that passed through Queen's, and of course other universities, would actually be better off learning a trade, given the shortage of skilled plumbers, joiners, and bricklayers. Therefore, I put it to you that those of us that have passed through here have only benefited from education here, in the sense that we now have a sense of superiority over graduates of UU. I therefore urge members to reject this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goss, for that tragic story of your descent. I now call on Daniel Toft.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to build on that sense of superiority that we have of graduates of UU, and despite being a point from the opposition, I think one very important act. But first, in an order of importance, Mr. President Emeritus, Eternal Leader and Chair, Mr. Secretary, my Lord, members of the Board of Trustees, Mr. President-elect, members of the proposition, members of the House, and members of the opposition. Firstly, allow me to thank everyone involved in the organisation of this evening's event, particularly the great-grandfather of the Society, and the man that no one can get rid of, Mr. Ryan Hoey. But in line with literary tradition, I only found out I was doing this debate a day or so ago, following a message from Mr. Hoey in his usual blunt, straight-to-the-point type of speaking. Quote, fancy speaking on the alumni debate on Saturday. And I thought, the alumni debate? The debate for us bygones and has-beens. By God, I'm old. I'm not going to try to defend the value of a course at Queen's, frankly I can't. But that doesn't negate from the values of the experience. My colleagues have already outlined much of the substance of the values of Queen's. But if you want a university education in Northern Ireland, you've got two options. A glorious institution, which this evening you're all pleased to be sat within, and the crayon-wielding, communist, socialists, and other sort of crap at Ulster. Although leading university, there is only one obvious choice. But I just want to pinpoint some opposition hypocrisy that maybe no one else has noticed, but I think is central to the debate before us this evening. Let's all cast our mind back a year and a half. Some of you won't know what I'm referring to, so please do bear with me. Our president, Mr. Dermot Hamill, was a student at the typical rival of this glorious institution, Ulster University.
On that point, sir.
No. But ladies and gentlemen, within just 1 year, he jumped ship. But before that, after a year before he was at Ulster, he did a year here at Queen's. And he was seduced by the university's beauty, the university's legacy, and the glorious debating style of the university's best, oldest, and most prestigious student society. The promise of chaos at a certain debating society. He made a mistake, and he left for what he believed was greener pastures in Ulster. He did a year at Queen's, he did a year at Ulster. But like any man with a shred of sense and access to UCAS, he corrected his mistake swiftly, and he returned. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to just look and see the side of the debate he is sitting on this evening, the opposition. He has the cheek to sit with the opposition.
On that point, sir.
An attempt to bring shame to the institution that has done so much. Don't listen to a word of it, my friends. Disregard his entire speech when he comes before you, and just remember where you're sat, Stephen. Look, my time at university was characterised by, and is the case for basically everyone, drinking 3 to 4 days a week, attending a questionable amount of classes, and devoting most of my free time to become and then becoming a council member of this society.
On that point, do you currently spend most of your time drinking, occasionally showing up to work, and then running for council members?
Well, I'm unemployed, so... Maybe that doesn't help my stance, but honesty is the policy here. And that's the point though. The Literific is a fundamental part of Queen's, and it cannot be separated from it.
On that point, sir.
Go ahead.
You yourself, whenever I served on the York Council, spoke extensively about how Queen's University, in particular its wing, the Students' Union, was an absolute obstacle to your position as president. Surely you can recognise that rather than being a supportive aspect, the Queen's University of Belfast was an obstacle to the Queen's University of Belfast at a early time in society.
Here. But, Mr. Hamill, that narrative doesn't fit the argument tonight, so I'm not going to it doesn't fit what I'm trying to say here, so I'm not going to go for that one. I would remind you that the SU is run by what should be Ulster students and is largely independent. And if you remember, I did want to bring the Literific into Queen's as a fundamental part of the university rather than just another student society like the Dragon Slayers or something like that. Apologies. I'll make some progress, thank you. But if the Literific has contributed to your future, the university has, and we can all name experiences in the Literific that have shaped us. From organising debates and stressing about Bloomberg journalists ahead of the legacy debate to, in my case, dealing with that awful group of people from the SU who wanted nothing more, the independent SU, who wanted nothing more than the society to burn. I remember the first time I debated, my heart was racing and I was beyond nervous. Within a year and a half, I ended up as president and stood at the front of the room every week and took ridiculous president's questions. But that's what the Literific and Queen's did for me. The ability to speak publicly, the boosting confidence, and the removal of my fear of public speaking. It was a big step. And that, quite frankly, has set me up for the future. My time at university was quite literally an education in skipping classes, an education in avoiding being cooed by Dermot, and an education in quickly realising you're the new kid from England, akin to something off Dairy Girls, I'm told, and joining a place where literally everyone knows everyone else. I learnt next to nothing in the classes, I'll admit it, I'll be honest. In the classes I paid £9, yes, 9, not £4, a year to attend, probably my fault, but the experience I gained here was so worth it. The contact friends, life experience that comes both naturally as you navigate this kind of place, but also manufactured through the course structure. I can't cook, apologies, 2 seconds. I can't cook at all, I can't even boil an egg. I lived off Tesco ready meals for 3 years. I can't tell you a single reading from my time at Queen's. My dissertation that I slaved over was outdated 48 hours after submission. I'm unemployed, but I can organise a lit talk, I can ask the President what he had for breakfast, and I can, crucially tonight, shout shame at opposition speakers at any point possible. And for me, that's good enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you Queens, and more importantly, thank you Literific. We are all certainly ready for the future, probably.
Thank you very much, President Emeritus Toft. We now hand over to another President Emerita, Tailte McSparron.
Good evening, members of the House. Every day, I thank God I have an English degree. Because my English degree prepares me for every possible scenario in life. For example, this morning when I woke up, I was a giant beetle. And I'm not talking John, Paul, George, or Ringo. I mean, I had 6 legs, 2 wings, beady eyes, and I lay in bed, trapped, flailing on my back, and for a second I panicked, thinking, why am I a giant beetle? But soon all my fears were eradicated as I remembered that in class we read a short story that was just like this. For every unpredictable event that could crop up in my life, there's a book to prepare me for it. World War III breaks out, I'll just read War and Peace. AI eventually takes over, Asimov has some great stuff on that. And even this debate tonight, I thought to myself, how are you meant to define life after university? Because what is life? Is it just the opposite to death? Am I really alive if I'm not living? What about eternal life? When does life start? Do all living creatures experience life as we know it? Like the fish cakes you're going to have for dinner later. They were alive and Queens did prepare them in a way. But it seems like so many endless questions that are never going to get cleared up. But then I remembered that English literature gave us the answer to life at the universe of everything, and that of course is 42. The reality is that the only certain thing in life is that there are no certainties. Life is unpredictable, it's undefinable, and it's unimaginable. University prepares you for life in a bubble, but that bubble will eventually pop and you'll find yourself unprepared once again. I myself am 5 months clean from being an English student. 22 years old, freshly out of Queen's, I'm perhaps in the best position to answer this question for the House. Was I prepared? No. The working world is even worse than I could have ever possibly anticipated. I was looking for a job and then I found a job, and heaven knows I work for the civil service child maintenance department, so my whole job is basically getting screamed at by one parent because they don't want to have to pay for their kids, and then getting screamed at by the other parent because the other parent isn't paying for their kids. And somehow, in every situation, it's my fault.
On that point, well, it depends on the case that you're dealing with at the time. You talked about it earlier.
It doesn't depend on the case they're dealing with at the time. They're always angry, okay? There are hundreds of us working for this department. A lot of them much older than me, and a lot of them much more educated than me, Olcan, McSparron. Many of my colleagues have master's degrees from Queen's, and yet we're all still stuck in the same position, at the bottom rung of the civil service, hoping to maybe be permanent, or maybe just seeing it as a means to end with no end in sight. There was a time when having a degree from a Russell Group university like Queen's was a golden key that could unlock you a relatively middle-class existence. But in the modern world, more and more people are getting educated, and there's simply not enough graduate jobs to go around. All Queen's provides you with is an education, and that's all it really should do. Queen's cannot prepare you for life because life is not something you can prepare for, and it can't prepare you for a career because the world of work is so sorely disappointing that if we knew what we were signing up for, we probably wouldn't even do it in the first place. They say life is one big rat race, a competitive struggle for wealth and power. And I have to agree, maybe university used to teach those rats how to solve the maze and win their cheese, and those educated rats would live happy, cheesy lives. But now we're teaching rats how to solve the maze, and there's not even any cheese at the end. So the rats may as well just go on the dole, or become singers of songs and tellers of tales, or become influencers if they really want to degrade themselves. Rats aside, it has never been the job of Queen's to prepare us for life. It has only been to educate us. Education more than anything gives you an understanding that life is impossible to prepare for. As Socrates said, true wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. The proposition can argue all that they want, that they've not prepared for life, and that their education is what provided this. And I have to admit, they all seem like very prepared individuals. Actually, I want to call out Daniel Toft, because if you like Queen so much, then why'd you go to London School of Economics for your Masters? And lastly, I want to call out the last speaker on the proposition who hasn't spoken yet, because it just so happens that he is my big brother. And no matter what lies he might spin to you, no matter what rhetoric he might entice you with, do not believe for a second that he is prepared for life after death. Last year and decided to walk 3 miles back to his hotel during a severe storm.
On that point,
I don't think I will. Or if he said we're not in Kansas anymore, well, Olcan, we're not in Queens anymore. This is the man who has a master's in law, and yet the amount of fake news articles he has sent our family group chat.
Yes, I do sometimes accidentally read a movie web article and think it's actually happening as a movie, but in politics are entitled.
Olcan, I love you very much, but as your little sister, I have the right to torture you and say you're really, really, really not prepared for it. And I think the fact that we're having this debate at an alumni event is very important because for the vast majority of us, the bubble that university life put us in has popped. And we came across circumstances and events in our lives that no amount of education could have prepared us for. Maybe it's having children for the older people in the crowd. Maybe it's the death of a loved one. Maybe it's waking up one day as a giant beetle. But for just one night, you can come back to Litterific and feel the freedom, the fun, and absolute ignorance that is university life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. McSparron. I now come with a sense, following that, of, quite frankly, grim inevitability to our fourth speaker for the conversation, Dr. McSparron.
Members of the Litterific, guests, friends, a few enemies. I went to university and I enjoyed my time at university, and I truly do believe it prepared me, despite some scandalous lies that have been given by the opposition, for life after university. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of personal circumstances which are being utilised in the opposition. But I actually think we need to set a goalpost for what is preparation for life after university. I'm going to ask for a bit of audience participation. Could people please raise their hands who are either in full-time employment or are doing a postgraduate degree and looking around the room, possibly retired? Could you please raise your hand if you're in all in? So virtually everyone in the room is in that boat. Now, if we were not in a university Queen's crowd, we would not see that many hands raised
On that point.
right now. Yes.
I'm full-time employed as a bartender. Are you going to suggest that if I brought
You're
one
a
of my
student
colleagues
still,
up
Dermot.
here,
You're not at university.
I dropped out.
And also, I'm nearly empty.
Tory. I'm going to ask again. I want people to raise their hands in the audience who owns a home or would aspire to own a home within the next 5 years.
On that point.
No. Well, that wasn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be. But still, look, the wider
Richard speaking rather than addressing questions to the House.
That would be very true. Look, the wider point that I'm trying to make is this here, is there's a social contract whenever you go to university, and that contract is this. You go to college, you complete a certain set of tasks in a certain period of time, show that you do them to a certain level of quality, you go to an employer and they hire you for a job. That is it. People can go and say that Queen's had more to prep you for than that, or they didn't prep you for that, but everyone and their mother who actually goes to university knows that is why they are going to university. I would furthermore say that if you look at the wider room around us, the jobs that those people have got are, as a general rule, pretty decent, and they would not have got those had they not had their degree.
On that point?
No, I shall not take those points. You will see that there are a variety of different jobs. Chloe here works for the Alliance Party.
Mr. McSparron. Order!
Tara works for the Human Rights Commission. Tia works, bless his wee soul, wherever he may be, for PwC.
Mr. McSparron, your speech cannot take the form of bullying members of the
Which is leading me to my next point. I made friends in Queen's, and I've mentioned some of them there now. I had a great time. I had cherished times. I made many friends and Luke Holmes. Queen's, and I'm very And I made those friends, and I've made friends outside of Queen's in a variety of odd jobs that I've done. And I'll tell you what those people do. They work in retail, they work in food services, they work in bars. And that is because Queen's provided a set of skills which gives you the ability to get a decent office job, and from there you can go and own a property, have a family. Whenever you're in your 40s, you'll have your procedure. They'll not call it an operation, it'll be a procedure. You'll have that there, and whenever you're in your 80s, you will peacefully pass away one evening. And that is what the purpose of university and Queen's University itself is. Yes, Dermot.
Olcan, you spent last year working for Musgrave Marketplace in their warehouse. How dare you shoot down retail workers when you have 2 more degrees and I earn more money?
And that is where I met those people. I found out how difficult life is for people after university, and people who didn't go to university. But I can now say that of those people I work with of those people I work with in Musgrave, I know that an awful lot of them are not going to have the opportunities that I have because I do have a degree. And I realised at that moment that yes, Queen's is not perfect. Yes, it is not brilliant. But at the end of the day, Queen's did give me that opportunity, and I have to simply seize it and go forward. But I also, whilst I was working for Musgrave, I was also working for Queen's at that time. I was one of their workers, and I will be blunt. Queen's exploited me for cheap pay. They exploited me. I now run a film production company called Coins and Serpent Productions Limited. And if ever there was a company and if ever there was a company which sounded like a really reasonably priced film company you should hire, then it's Coins and Serpent Productions. But Queen's exploited me, and I learned through that exploitation that I can get interns and people who work for cheap. No. And I tell those interns, yes, you'll get a job one day. Like Queen's promised so many people, they will get things one day. So I learned a valuable skill from Queen's in that I learned how to exploit others.
Mr. McSparron, you served on my council while I was president, and I think maybe you can't see the true veil, because while I was president, I in turn exploited you to get that far ahead.
You actually exploited Morgan Hickman, who went and got another job, and then I went and said, you know, someone's going to take one for the team, and jumped in to help with that council.
Yeah, that is what happened, correct.
Thank you very much. But look, I understand people hate Queen's, and look, I get that they have feelings about it and they think it didn't prepare them, and naturally a group of former autistic students who hate it all so much would come back here would obviously love it so much that they would go and speak. But my wider point, and the point that has really been lost in this speech, which I have definitely put much prep time and effort into, is that Queen's did leave us adequately prepared for the future, because at the end of the day, no matter how bad your life gets, no matter how much you mess up, no matter how much you go back to a literary debate, you can always say, as a graduate of Queen's, I did not attend Ulster University. And in my opinion, that is better prepped for the future than anything else. Thank you, and it's been an honour speaking to you.
I'm going to give Mr. McSparron the opportunity to retract something he said in the last bit of the speech. Any chance, Olcan?
Which bit do you want me to retract?
Yes, we'll move on. I said before the last speech that there was a sense of grim inevitability. Seeing the frankly demonic glint in Dermot's eye,
football.
I move on with some trepidation. Our current president, Mr. Hamill.
I think it ought to be pointed out that our dear Olcan is a former retail worker alongside me who Olcan has 2 more degrees than me. I have 0 degrees because what am I? I'm a dropout. I am not only once dropout, I am not only twice dropout, and more than likely by the end of the year, I will be a thrice dropout. And yet Olcan worked in retail and earned less money than I did. Important to be on the table. Let's also look at the rest of the proposition. Daniel, dole merchant. He similarly earns less than I do, and I don't have a degree. I haven't met you yet, so I'm not
And to be honest, I'd say you earn a lot more than I do. Congratulations, Mr. Finlay. You earn more than a 21-year-old.
On that point, sir.
This debate has been filled with notions of what you can earn, what you can do with a degree from the Queen's University of Belfast. Whenever pointed out by myself to President Emeritus Toft about the fact that yes, you were all bastards, he knocked it down.
Language.
Sorry. Yes, you were all horrible. He knocked it down because it didn't suit his narrative. Because the narrative of the proposition tonight, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is that you come to Queen's University, you come along, you join the Literific, you spend far more money than you can afford to on a suit, you end up at some kind of event, you wear a tux. I didn't, I dressed like a Cuban drug dealer. And then next thing you know, you've got a nice job in the House of Commons, in a nice law firm, in Musgrave Marketplace. But that's not
I'm not quite them. I don't
No, thank you. No one wants to hear you, Mr. RCLP. Because if Queen's University really prepared you for life, then all of us will be standing here with the sense that Olcan doesn't have to not run for the SDLP in West Belfast. But of course I'm not going to spend my whole time attacking the proposition. That would be cheap. And if there's one thing that's the difference between me and my suit, I'm not cheap. Queen's is a university that I have not graduated from. It is a university I will probably not graduate because after 3 first years, student finance will not pay for another first year, no matter how many emails I send. But what ought to be remembered here is that Queen's is an interesting institution. It's an important institution. But it is not really a university. What Queen's is...
On that point,
no, thank you. Queen's is a public relations firm. Queen's spends its money inviting dignitaries. Yeah, we had truth. Whether it's Hillary Clinton, the butcher of Benghazi, whether it's... also, I've always wanted to be with a pint, so make sure you have a full cap. Whether it's Senator Mitchell, who has not been on the Epstein list. Queen's is a public relations firm. It hosts big events. It spends very little time on student experience and is much more interested in photos and in articles for Belfast Live. You see, what Queen's does is it tells all of us we're going to be a university. We're going to give you the best student experience we can. The next thing you know, you're stood there paying £4,500 of your dear money. I'm now £23,000 of debt, I've got nothing to show for it. They tell you that's what we're going to do. And the next thing you know, you're stood at a conference, no thank you. You're stood at a conference, shaking hands with war criminal number 4. And that's it. That's all you get. The quality of education is dropping. The rankings and the leaderboards are dropping. Everything you get from this university is dropping. Queen's is a public relations firm. It is not a university. Because a university wouldn't spend all of its money inviting over dignitaries of the world, whether it's the Prime Minister of Finland or the Ambassador of this or the Ambassador of that, whether it's Mr. Paul Snell. I love you too. Queen's is fundamentally a PR firm because the quality of education is not there anymore. The Russell Group universities of the past are dead.
On that point.
The support for student societies is gone.
That is the only university in the UK where the students' union is not independent, it is run by the university. This is a PR firm that we all happen to pay £4.5 a year for. And what did they do this week? What did the heads of Queen's University do this week? They called upon every student currently at this university to pay more money for their degree. As their rankings in the leaderboards drop, they called for more of our money to put us in more debt so they can spend more time bringing George Mitchell over for his last visit in Northern Ireland. There's been about 6 of those so far.
Like your degrees.
The proposition will tell you about the successes the Queens have, whether it's listing Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton as their alumni, despite the fact they've never done a class here. They will tell you of how important it is to be a member of the Queen's family. I recently found out that if you're a placement student here at Queen's University, you pay £1,000 to be a member of the Queen's family. That's what you get from your degree. Queen's, listen, I spent a long time doing that bell. I had 7 minutes. Queen's will tell you how wonderful your degree is. You will go to the world of work, you will go to a London law firm and will say you didn't come from Oxford or Cambridge. The members of the proposition will tell you how wonderful it is. That is why Daniel ran to LSE. That is why Olcan ran to the SDLP. That is why Jonathan ran to the HOC. And Rebecca, I can't come up with any ranks. This is a university which does nothing but exploit us. It has no interest in our student experience. It is a university that has no interest in pushing you. It is a university that has no interest in mental health support. It is a university that has no interest in pursuing your career. It is a university that is exactly, fundamentally based off public relations. Give me a second, Paul. It is a university that exists nothing more than as a firm to build up more events so that Ian Greer can make more celebrities. So, thank you very much. Vote opposition. And remember, the Queen doesn't give a damn about it.
Thank you very much, President Hamill. We are short for time and therefore going to dispense with points from the floor. You will have adequate opportunity to discuss all the points raised in the debate after the dinner this evening. I trust that you will. And therefore, we move on to the vote on speaker ability. All those in support of the proposition, please raise your hands. All those in favour of the opposition, please raise your hands. Abstentions? Yeah. On that basis, the vote on speaker ability goes to the opposition.
Goss, that's not even it.
Everyone, honourable members of this society, presidents, current and past, I am truly delighted to see that the standard of debate is as high or low as ever been in this society from that debate this evening. I believe that on that point we have truly discovered that there is actually no way in which Queen's has prepared any of us for life. That's certainly the opinion of this House. And on that point, I believe that we are now adjourning for the evening. President Hamill, do you want to tell us what comes next?
Well, up next is dinner. I can't remember the menu. I probably should have known it. So yes, we will all be moving to the Great Hall for dinner. I don't know why I'm buttoning my jacket. I don't have a tie. We're all going to the Great Hall for dinner. If anyone doesn't know how to get there, go down the stairs, go out the door and turn right. Anyone that's a member of the Cllr should know where it is. We've probably held some kind of debate in the time there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President Emeritus Shannon. And can speakers make sure they get up the front for the hall?
How do you find that?
Yeah.